Hey everyone. So today, in honor of Edgar Allan Poe's birthday, which was Sunday, the 19th, January 19th, and also his very famous poem, probably his most famous, The Raven, which was published in January 1845, we are going to be drawing a raven today. So I'm pretty excited about this. I haven't done this one before, so this is new for all of us. And so welcome to my stream. I'm Sarah, and we today we're doing drawing. I also do watercolor and acrylic painting at the moment. Maybe other things to be added later, but for right now, this is what we're doing. And you can use a number 2 pencil. I've got one here. So if that's all you have, if you want to try out drawing today and all you have is a number 2 pencil and an eraser, that's important. Most number 2 pencils have an eraser at the top, but if you don't, if you have like an eraser somewhere, that's good. Then you can join in today, and I will be explaining as I go how, if you're using a number 2 pencil, what you would do differently, because I will be using different colors of pencils. Different types of pencils that provide different values. Like you can go darker with lead, for example. So I will be using lead pencils as well as graphite. Okay, so a number 2 pencil, by the way, is graphite. So this is a graphite pencil. It's also known as an HB. I know I mentioned this a lot on my streams, but I think it's important to know. Hi, Sprout Girl. Welcome. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know, and thanks for stopping by to give me a shout out. Have fun at work. So number 2 and HB are the same thing, just different quality. Okay, so I'm going to start with a 2B pencil, and that is one of the lowest of the B meaning soft, of the B variety. There's also H, which is hard. Okay, so first things first, I wanted to do little tidbits about Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, since this is his, in honor of his birthday. So the very first tidbit I'm going to give you is that Edgar Allan Poe is considered by many to be kind of the inventor of the modern murder mystery, or really just mystery in general, but the modern mystery. And what's interesting about that is that his own death was a mystery. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just giving you a preview there. So the first thing is we're going to get started on the drawing. We're going to be doing this in a portrait orientation. And I'm going to start lower on the page. And the reason for that is I think it will generate interest. So we've talked a little bit about composition before. And if I were to put it in the middle, it's like taking photos. If you take a photo of someone and you put them directly in the middle of the camera, it's fine. And that's how most people take their pictures. But it's not very interesting. You want the viewer to ask questions in their mind. So, and then this is really the best way to ever create composition in design, period. You want there to be some mystery to it. So I guess maybe Poe was aware of that, when he did his mysteries. So if we create it lower on the page, it begs the question, what's going on at the top of the page? What's up there? And we're going to be leaving it white too, so it's even more like, is this a light source? Are ravens going to be looking back And so it's like, what is he looking at? You know, it generates questions. So it's important to consider in composition where we want to place the object. So not right in the middle. We're going to actually place it farther down on the page. So first thing I'm going to do is very, very lightly. I cannot stress how I'm going to draw general shapes for the head and the body of the raven. Now, because you probably would like a reference image to look at, I'm going to bring up my Discord channel. So anyone can join my Discord channel, and I encourage you to go out there. I have posted a picture of today's reference image, the raven, and this I don't usually go out to the Discord channel till the very end of the stream where we discuss our artwork. If anybody wants to upload their pictures of their artwork and critique it or get feedback from me, that's what that Discord channel is very specifically for feedback. And it's an art share community. So the idea is that we can share ideas or our work that we're working on, and just a positive feedback community. So go out there if you would like the reference image. I've got mine up on my screen here, so we are going to get started. All right, let's see, let me point to it right there. I'm going to leave that up for a little while so you guys can go out there and look at the reference image if you need to. All right, so first things first, our raven is looking backwards this way. So I'm going to do a very light oval, and then I'm going to do a larger oval below it going down towards the bottom of the page. So again, I'm keeping this very light. Today we're going to be learning something called tonal shading, because in real life there are no, like in nature, there's not hard edges, really. Everything is values. I mean, even though we see color, if you were to turn the world black and white, you'd still be able to see everything and differentiate everything, because you see everything in values. So values is really, that is how light or dark something is, and that's how we actually determine objects. So tonal shading takes advantage of that, and what it does is, it, instead of lines, it creates edges, and we'll see that today. All right, so I've got my general shape here. I'm going to hold this up because it is very light. Let's see if you can see the two shapes that I've got there. All right. Now, by the way, the difference in values in art, the difference in values is called contrast. And sometimes especially if you work with computers, or you do things to adjust your display, you will see brightness and contrast as a feature that you can adjust, or a characteristic, I guess, not a feature. So contrast is basically the difference between values. So how different two values are next to each other. And so we're going to be creating high contrast today, meaning we're going to be doing a lot of very, very light and very, very dark. In the art world, this is referred to as chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro. I'm trying to think. That is, if you want to look that up, it's, hopefully I'm spelling it correctly, CHIROSCURO, chiaroscuro. I think that's how you spell it. Begins with a CH. Anyway, that is a technique of having very, very light, very bright highlights and very dark shadows, and just like this dramatic contrast. So you have a lot of artists, like Raphael is a famous artist who used this to, very effectively in his artwork. Okay, so now we're going to add a beak to our raven. I keep almost wanting to say crow, and that's not right. Ravens and crows are not the same. Again, I'm still trying to keep it pretty light. So I've got my beak there. Okay, now we're going to generally put where the eye is. How you do this is you go, so you've got like your middle. You're going to go to about a quarter and draw like a very light cross line, cross hatch. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the left side. So we find the middle, and then we find half of the middle and the edge, and that gives us a quarter. And that's going to put where our eye is. So we're going to just draw kind of a circle in that area. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase my crosshatch because I don't need it there anymore. Remember, I've mentioned it in previous streams, but whenever you leave eraser marks, always blow them away instead of brushing them away so that you don't smear anything in your painting, or drawing rather. Okay, so now we're going to try to refine our shapes a little bit. So we've got like the beak, for example, is a little bit more curved. So I'm going to curve it down. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the line between the upper and lower beak. This has some curvature to it. Okay. All right. Come in. I'm still going pretty light here because, again, we're not trying to define the edges. Well, we haven't defined the edges yet. We're going to be defining those later. So I still want to keep it pretty light because that's going to make it look more organic later. You won't see those hard lines when we start adding shading around it. Okay, so right about here, we have some feathers are going to come out. So I'm just going to make just some general lines, maybe a little bit zigzag lines. Okay. We also have feathers up at the top of the beak, kind of at the bridge, I guess that would be. So I'm just going very light, and I'm kind of going slowly. I don't know if you've seen previous streams. I've talked about my classroom rules, and of course this is different than a classroom setting, but I hope honor system you're abiding by them. They help you, I think they help you be a better artist. Number 1 rule is clean workspace. Number 2 rule is don't rush. And I think that generally that's important for most things you do in life. Don't rush it, you know. Take your time, be thorough. It's important. All right. I don't really want to add too much feathers here just yet, so I'm just going to be very general. Up here. Now, keep in mind your feathers are generally going to flow with the shape of the crow. So my feathers are kind of curving around the outside shape. And by the way, if you are new to my stream, feel free to ask me any questions in chat. We're pretty relaxed here, so there's no pressure. I usually can finish within like approximately a 2-hour period, so there's no rush really to finish. So ask any questions you need. Okay. Probably being more detailed than I even really need to be right now, but you know, I want to have a little bit of a plan because we are going to be doing a lot of light and dark, and light is much harder to get to after if you've already drawn over it. You can erase out, but you know, that doesn't always work out. Okay. All right. So something to consider, there is, I'm pretty much done with the feathers on the back of the head, so now I'm going to come in. Let me give the eye a little bit more shape. So there's like a smaller part of the eye, and then there's like a more oval shape, almost like a teardrop. In art, you're looking at shapes a lot, like overall shapes and what something looks like to you. And it doesn't have to be a specific reference like a teardrop or an oval. You know, those are standard geometric shapes, but it can look like, you know, generally like a boot, or, you know, I don't know. I look at things all the time and I think, oh, that looks like the shape of South Carolina, you know, because that's where I'm from. So, which is basically like a big piece of pie is what it looks like. But, you know, it's personalize it. It's what it looks like to you. Okay. So at the top of the beak here, we have like this kind of, it's part of the bridge. It's like this cuff that goes over it. And there's some feathers that go into the beak under the eye. That's a little closer than I'd like. I'm going to bring the beak in just a little bit more. I'm just going to go ahead and erase out that part of the head that we drew earlier. So I'm bringing the mouth in a little bit closer to the eye, and then I'm going to do some feathers here that are going away from the eye. And in fact, I think these need to be farther back too, like towards the neck. So I'm just going to come back in here, and you can kind of start in the same place, but I think they need to go farther, because they connect almost with this. is really still not where I want it to be. Okay, let's think about this. So if the eyes here, we have these connecting feathers. It's going to come down. Okay, here we go. See, sometimes it takes a little bit, even if you've planned something out. You know, proportions don't always come right away. Now, let's see. Now, there's like this general shape below the eye. Like it's if we were drawing like the apple of its cheek. Don't think that ravens have cheeks like we do, but this is like the general shape. There's actually going to be like a poof of feathers there, which is going to look like it's coming out towards us. So I'm marking that area. Got some feathers here. And I'm just drawing general guidelines for how I want my feathers to look. Now, in the body of the crow, raven, I did it. I was trying not to do it. Don't be mad at me, raven. Okay, in the body here, what we're going to do is draw some guidelines for where we want our feathers to, like the lines we want our feathers to fall on. So I'm going to just draw some general lines. They kind of curve a little bit. They go with the shape of the body. And then let's see. Down here, which would be like the breast of the raven. They change direction just a little. Because this is like its wing. So I'm going to erase this guideline because I think it kind of runs into the wing a little. Okay. And let's see. Have some feathers that come down here. So the face area is what's going to have the most detail. So that's what we're going to concentrate on here for the most part. But I do still want to have a good guide down here. I do still want to make sure that it's accurate. So I'm still spending a little bit of time on it. Okay. Now, let's see. I think we're okay. The face. I think we're okay. All right. So keeping it light, we're still keeping everything light. So we're going to start doing our feathers, like our short feathers are up here. Now I did say I was going to talk a little bit about Poe. I've got kind of a cheat sheet that I made. So there's a lot of really cool information about Poe. So I did tell you that he died mysteriously. But what you may not know, he was only 40 years old, so he was really young. And they don't know, that there are so many theories. There's theories that he had rabies, because he didn't want to drink. And he'd kind of battled using alcohol a lot of his life as like an escape. And apparently he had a very low tolerance for alcohol, so he didn't have to even drink very much to be intoxicated. But he didn't want to drink anything, and part of rabies is, I forget what it's called, but it's the fear of water. It's where you don't want to drink any water at all. You don't want any liquids, I don't think. So, and he did have some of that. People reported that, so they think maybe that was it. But he disappeared for 5 days and then showed back up and had all these weird symptoms. And he died shortly after. So, who knows? They think maybe murder, that, he had, I think, like a cousin or something that there was some weird rivalry with. There was like weird political stuff going on at the time. There was something called cooping, where people, like these gangs, would kidnap people during an election. I can completely see this going on right now, sadly, but they would kidnap people and like hold them hostage for a little while and get them intoxicated, or give them drugs, things like that, and then have them go and elect whoever it is that they wanted them to elect in several different polling locations. So it was a fraud, a type of voting fraud. This has been thrown out generally because of the fact that Edgar Allan Poe was so famous. He would have been pretty well known at the time, and that would have been a huge story. So I don't think that that's it. But anyway, so there's, I think even like carbon monoxide poisoning has been suggested as maybe a reason. So there's a lot of mystery around his death, and I think that's kind of fitting, for someone who invented modern mystery, that his death was a mystery. I think Agatha Christie, who is also a mystery writer, had like some mystery around her too. She disappeared for a while. So maybe just it's a thing about mystery writers. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start drawing like these little kind of chevron. Chevron is like a V. We're going to draw these little chevron shapes that are overlapping, and they're going to go in the direction of the lines that we drew earlier. And there's some overlapping. This is almost like when you see roses, you see there's like overlapping petals. It's a little like that. Hold on just a minute. Something that needs to be taken care of. Okay, I'm going to keep drawing these while my and some of these can be like a little bit more oval shaped. They're going to get bigger as we go further down on the bird.
I'm trying to look at my reference photo and see how they've done their feathers. Because it's starting to look a little bit premeditated to me rather than organic. It's like I want some of these to be, I don't know, not so, I don't know. They just look too much the same. So I'm going to do like some smaller ones here. This is why it's good to have your reference photo, especially if you've never drawn something before, which I have not done this. I've never even studied ravens. Some of the things that I draw I've looked at before, and even if I haven't drawn that particular reference image, I've drawn things like it. So, but this I haven't done any. Some other interesting things about Edgar Allan Poe. So first of all, Allan was not his born name. He was born Edgar Poe. But his parents died when he was young, and he was a foster kid. A family took him in. They were the Allens, and so that's why he has that as his kind of middle name there, the Edgar Allan Poe part. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, he and his foster father did not get along so well. I think his foster father was not faithful to his foster mother, and I think that really bothered Poe, so they fought about it a lot. I don't think, too, he wanted to write. He actually published his first book, Tamerlane, I think I don't know if that's how you say it, but he published his first book when he was 18 years old. And I don't think his foster father was particularly thrilled about him being a writer. But of course, he refused to support him, and of course this just made Poe even more want to be a professional writer. And in fact, that as a career is said to be sort of invented by him, because up until then, I think a lot of people would write kind of on the side, or maybe once they retired. That wasn't their only career. So the idea of a starving artist and someone who just wrote for a living and that's all they did, I think is attributed to Poe, whether he invented it or not. I think a lot of people attribute that to him, that profession. He was determined, though. And at least he was well known in his lifetime. All right. I don't know how I feel about all of these. We'll see. This is not coming along the way I'd probably like it. But maybe we can define some of that a little bit more later. Okay. Let's see. Up here we'll have some more shallow kind of U's, almost like petals of a flower. Okay. All right. So we've got some feathers that come down here. So these kind of go over the side of our raven. Now we're not going to be filling out all of the detail down here, so a lot of this is going to go away. That's why we did it very lightly. I'll get a couple more in here maybe. We'll see. I don't really want to give up on this section yet, but I'm not liking how it's looking so far. But again, this is still relatively preliminary. And we can always come in and do more detail later. I'm going to do some kind of zigzaggy lines. Just kind of outline the head of the bird. Probably come a little farther back here. So remember that cheek shape. I'm going to come in here and just do some general wavy lines in here. This is maybe a little harder than I originally thought. But doesn't mean we're not going to do it, of course. You know, I like a challenge. I hope you do too. So there's like this second layer of choppiness that kind of attached to the feathers we did earlier underneath the eye. You know, I find a lot of times that it's hard to judge a drawing based on its in-between stages. Painting is the same way, you know, or any art. Probably anything in life, even any project you're working on. You know, you can get a general idea of where something is when it's like in the middle, like in one of the many layers that eventually go on it. But it's a little counterproductive, meaning that you don't get a whole lot out of it, because the end result very rarely looks anything like the middle stages. So your middle stages aren't indicative at all of what your final piece is going to look like. So I'm going to give this part on the beak some I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching here. Now remember, cross hatching is where you do lines one way and then you go the opposite direction with lines. A hatch is a line. Let's see. From the eye, we have like a little bit of like the feathers kind of are right over, just going with the shape of the eye and then flaring out towards the back. I'm going to hold this up so you can see a little bit. Oh, excuse me. So what I did here, so I just went back. Okay, let's see. This is all refining. I want the beak to be a little fatter on the bottom. Okay. All right. So that's all right for now. Oh, I guess we could go ahead. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I guess we could go ahead and further define our feathers that we drew in the head where we just did our guiding lines. We're going to be coming in and doing shading later that will further define some of these. So I've got I'm going to use my eraser here because there's an area right below that cheek that we did earlier that I kind of want to be a different shape. So what I'm looking at is it has like more of a like an arrowhead shape. And then has like little feathers at the bottom. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to start using darker pencils. So I'm going to put my 2B away for now. And I'm going to use my 4B pencil. And this is softer, and therefore it's going to look a little bit darker. Bolder, I guess, is what the B is for. But they're also softer, and that's why they can go darker. So now we're going to start kind of outlining our raven. So let's see. So I'm just very lightly going to come on the outside right up to the feathers. I'm going very lightly. Whenever this is very similar to a painting, you layer. So we always start light. Be like this if you've ever done a color pencil drawing. It's similar, you layer it. You don't start out digging the color into the paper. So we're just going to work around the outside of the raven. Just coming down to those areas that we created earlier, very lightly. Now, if you're using a number 2 pencil, it's fine to just kind of turn it sideways and just still lightly, but start coming in and shading in with that. At this point, you're not having to press very hard. Sometimes with a number 2 pencil, in order to get the same effect as a deeper shade, you have to press harder. But right now, we're not at that stage. So Poe began by writing poetry when he was younger, but he wasn't very successful at it. But by the time he was, I don't know, like middle school age, he had enough poetry to create a book. He's very prolific. And okay. I'm not going to worry too much about this just yet down here. I'm sticking to the areas where we've defined, where we've come in and we've created feathers and things like that. Okay. Now Poe, his foster father did not support the writing, and so Poe decided, he was broke. He decided to go into the military, and that actually worked for him. It turns out the military was actually a very good place for him. He thrived in it. And at some point, he decided he wanted to go to West Point, which is a big military school in the United States. So he did. He got into West Point. He was there for a little while. Poe was just not a college guy. Somebody would kill me if I got it wrong, so I'm going to make sure. He had he decided he wanted to get out of military school, and so he started actively trying to get himself kicked out. He spread rumors about himself, that he was related to the famous Benedict Arnold, who was considered a traitor. He stopped going to classes altogether. He just generally started being not a great student, not a model student. Okay, so I'm going to leave this down here. I'm going to leave this white, because we're going to do some different kind of drama down there. Okay. University of Virginia. I did not want to get that wrong. I wanted to make sure that I said the right Virginia school. So it was the University of Virginia. He went there for a little while. But like I said, he drank, and I think he did not... just generally, I don't think he liked school, even though he did okay there. I just don't think it was for him. And that is the case for some people. All right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out with my shadow in the general shape of the bird. So I'm going to make this, because that will give it like that ghostly appearance on the wall behind it. Yeah, I like that. I think that is very effective. So I'm just kind of rounding it to give it that general shape. Now, we are going to use a spreader. If you do not have a spreader, you can use your finger. However, we are going to have to get into some tight spots here. So you could take a piece of paper and roll it into like a little bit of a point, and then you can use the point as a spreader. So if you are using a spreader, and you have a set similar to this, notice that I do have some red tones in this. So to keep it clean, I always designate a red side and a black side. So this is my black side because I've already used it. So I'm going to come in here and just start further defining these shapes through the feathers. Now this is what's going to create our edges. So right now I'm just coming in around the actual feathers themselves, and then I'll go and continue further out. So similar to a pencil, you want to use like a really light touch in some places so that you can get a finer point. So his father did, or his foster father did actually pay for West Point. I guess he saw military school as maybe Poe actually doing something worthwhile with his life, since he didn't like the writing. So he did support that. However, he ended up leaving Poe out of the will, and as an additional slap in the face, an illegitimate child that Poe did the father had not even ever met was in the will, but Poe, who had been raised by them, was not. So that was definitely showing his distaste for Poe's career choice. All right, so now I'm coming out and I'm just using my spreader further out. I'm being pretty light about this. I'm not pressing very hard, because I don't want to create lines. I'm just trying to blend everything together. So later, a little bit later, he moved in with his aunt and cousin, and eventually got married to his cousin, who was 13 at the time, and he was 27. You might think that sounds really disgusting, but it was a little bit different back then. This was in the early 1800s, and that was not as frowned upon as it is now. Not that it shouldn't have been, but it wasn't. Okay, so now I'm getting closer to my edge where I had not shaded just yet. So I'm slowing down a little bit and being more careful, because I don't want to ruin the shape that I have. So his cousin, who was 13, was Virginia Clem. And my understanding is that they waited 2 years to consummate the marriage. So at least there's that. Okay. All right. So now we are going to, let's see. I guess I'm going to come up and I'm going to use my spreader and go like a little bit farther up. This might be an area where I could actually use my finger because I want it to be a little bit of an organic feel. So let's see, how are we going to do this? Well, I'm just going to use my finger and I'm just going to start spreading. Start spreading the news. I'm drawing a raven. Now, Poe had a nemesis, Rufus Griswold, and I guess Poe was pretty snarky, and he worked for a couple different like papers or magazines, and he'd write, scathing remarks about other writers. And this guy, Rufus, I guess, got really offended. And when Poe did die, apparently he wrote this guy, Rufus Griswold. I don't know if I just said the name wrong. I might have, because I was somehow thinking Harry Potter in my head. But anyway, Rufus Griswold was wrote like this horrible thing, lying, like writing all these lies about like how Edgar Allan Poe was just this depraved, horrible person. And unfortunately some of the lies stuck, so because it was the only real biography of Poe at the time, and he was famous and people wanted to know about him. So similar to negative publicity now, people just kind of ate it up and wanted to know their favorite author, how messed up he was. Okay, that didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So I'm like, maybe there's just not enough color and not enough pencil markings down. Excuse me. Got my eye is itching. Okay. So, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take... Okay, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my 4B pencil, or in your case 2B if that's what you're using, and I'm just going to very lightly just kind of make some sketchy lines. I'm hardly pressing at all. In fact, like the pencil's like barely in my hand. Because we just need more pencil markings here. The pencil markings are not, there's just not enough to spread, even after doing all of that. Just didn't get as dark as I wanted it to get. And now we can come down the body of the raven. Excuse me. Little residual cough from the other day. Okay. I'm going to take just like a little drink of water here. I'm also going to break just for a second. I mean, I guess that was a break to drink water. piece of chocolate. I do not know why my eye has just all of a sudden started itching. But it's frustrating after you use your finger to smear all this pencil and then and then your eye itches. Like, what? Got to use other fingers. So, okay. Now I'm going to use my finger again, but now I can... Yeah, that's better. That's much better. All right. Okay. This is, I'm liking a lot. It might be my hair, and I may have to go put a headband on or something. So 1845 is when The Raven was published. I mentioned that earlier. It was one of his last works, though. I actually don't know if he did any others after that, but I know it was one of the last, if not the last, before his death. Poe was a cool dude, though. I mean, in his... the genre, he was even a little bit of like an innovator in the science fiction genre. Like, he just, horror and science fiction and the macabre, like, just the dark. He just got it. And he... All right, so one more time, I'm going to come in right at the edges because I just don't like, this isn't blending enough. Like, this is too much of a contrast between this and this. That is not where I want my contrast to be. I want my contrast to be up against the Raven. So I'm coming in with a little bit more pencil. Again, like I said earlier, it's layers. Now, when I took my little break earlier, I guess we could have done a little breathing exercise or something, but, I did not do that. So what I'm doing now is trying to create a tiny bit of a gradient, meaning that it's going from a light value to a dark value or vice versa. Because I just want it to blend a little bit more into the background. So, I don't like when it goes off the page. I mean, I like when it goes off the page from a compositional point of view, but drawing off the side of a page is no fun. None at all, because your pencil then starts making like these really deep marks that you didn't want. Okay. Let's we're gonna come back in with our finger now that I've got this down. It's the layers. Makes a difference. Kind of like in the winter. Gotta dress in layers. Then you'll be hot when you get to the office or to school. Alright. Yeah. It's better. Now we probably could come in with our spreader. Like the side of our spreader. Let me see what that looks like. Look at my finger. So I'm going to come in with the side of my spreader. Again, if you have like a piece of paper, you can kind of crumple it up and make like a flat area. And you could do this if you don't have a spreader. Okay. Once I'm pretty satisfied with how this particular section looks, we will take a breather. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of seated cat-cow as our stretch. It's personally my favorite. I do a lot of driving because I teach workshops in other states. And so I do this in the car while I'm driving so that I don't get, you get kind of stiff. I generally enjoy driving, but nobody likes going numb. Well, maybe somebody does. Not me. Not Sarah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to take a drink of water, and I'm going to show you guys some seated cat-cow. So some of you, if you've ever done yoga, you may know. I'm going to push my seat back so you can maybe see me. Yep. So I've got my giant mirror here, so that's what that is. Some of you may have done cat-cow on the floor. What it is that cat, you arch your back like a cat would, and cow, you round your back as cat. Cow, you arch your back. So what I do is you can put your hands either on, like if you've got arms to your chair, you can, or you can put them on your knees, and you are basically going to turn your elbows out so that the inside of your elbow is facing out versus to the side. Okay, turn your elbows out, and you're going to arch your back. And this is cow. Take a deep breath in, and then you're going to breathe out and push yourself back, turning your arms as you go. Okay, breathe in. Turn your arms back out. And breathe out. Go back to cat position. Now, if you can, you should breathe through your nostrils both directions. The other day I was pretty stuffed up. My last stream. So I couldn't breathe through my nose both directions. And it was just very frustrating. One more time. Breathe in. And breathe out. Okay. Woo! I feel good and ready to go. So there was just like a little movement, a little breathing to get us ready for the next section. We're going to start doing a little more detail. All right, so I am going to use a 6B, which is even bolder. And if you are using, number 2 pencil, then you're just going to press a little bit harder. So I'm going to start. We're basically doing exactly what we did before where we're coming in around our feathers, creating even more drama. Excuse me. I'm just full of coughs and yawns and everything today. Okay. Just working my way around. You know, when I tell you to breathe through your nostrils, there's something to it. There's something about breathing through your nose. And it just, every once in a while you want to breathe. I like to breathe out of my mouth sometimes. So I breathe in through my nostrils and then, and I make like a very audible sound, like, when you breathe out. That can be very relaxing. But generally you want to breathe through your nostrils. And I honestly don't know the mechanic behind it, but it really works. Like it definitely makes a difference. And you do feel more relaxed. So there's a flow in the body. And that just must be part of that. Keep looking over to see if anybody is asking questions in chat, but I don't think we're very busy today, which is okay. My Edgar Allan Poe day. All right. So I'm going to come back in with the spreader and spread this. We're just repeating what we did before. So I've kind of planned out what I want to do for the next several weeks. I definitely will take suggestions. If anybody would like to tackle a particular technique or subject matter, I will do my best to accommodate. So feel free to either go on the Discord channel and make a note there. I get notifications for everything on that channel as of now, unless it becomes super popular, but I don't foresee that happening anytime in the near future. So for now, I get notifications to anybody posting anything in there. So, feel free to go out there and post questions or post comments, ideas of subject matter that you'd like. But right now I have everything planned out, unless somebody suggests something that's just really phenomenal, I have to do it. And if you would like to see that list of events, I always keep the next one up on my offline image, but you can go to my website, which is goskidesign.com, and there's a calendar of events, and that's from the main page. You can go to the calendar of events, and that will show you images and descriptions of all of the lessons that I have planned all the way up until, I believe, February 14th, Valentine's Day. I will be streaming on Valentine's Day, which is a Friday, and generally on Fridays I stream at night. Last Friday I did not. I streamed during the day, but generally that is my evening stream, so that some of my students, my previous students, can actually catch me live, because that's the time that they're home. But on that day, I will be streaming from 2 to 4 because I want everyone to go out and have a great Valentine's Day. I will not be doing that. I will be staying in because I don't have a Valentine. Unless one of my friends calls me up and wants to go out. They can be my Valentine. Okay. I didn't really get a whole lot of detail here underneath for the feathers, and I'm not sure what happened here. So, I don't know. I think it just got a little cramped. So, I may have to, let's see, let me get that 6B pencil out again. I might have to kind of reconfigure what this looks like down here. Which means I'm going to be drawing into my original sketch. But it's important that we get the proportions right, so I'm going to kind of fix it. There we go. That's better. All right, so we'll come in and smooth out those lines. But yeah, and in fact, on Valentine's Day, I'm going to be doing a watercolor, and it's a special Valentine's Day themed watercolor even. I've been kind of trying to stay with the winter theme, and I do continue to do that. In fact, my next stream this Friday, I believe I'm going to be doing a snowman. And this is actually, the one we're doing this Friday, it's an acrylic painting, I believe. I can go out to my website and check, make sure that I'm telling you guys the right thing. But this is one of my favorite lessons. And I've done it several times before. Okay, I'm not a fan of what's happening here, so I'm just going to kind of erase out just a little bit. And then start blending again, because what was happening is I was getting like a line, and I'm going to use my finger here because I do not want any harsh lines, because this is where it's going to fade to white. Instead of fading to black, we are fading to white. If you didn't catch that reference, you definitely weren't a fan of Metallica. I'm going to do the same over here. Just okay. All right. I'm actually going to erase the body. It's throwing me off here. And it's not going to be in the final image. So we're just going to erase that. Some of these winged lines I'm going to kind of lighten. I'm just running my eraser over them. Because I'm just having that shape in there was throwing me off a little bit, I think, with my proportions. Okay. So Oh, I did promise I was going to go to my website and look. So I'm going to Gotsky Design. I have class calendar. It's the very first link at the top. Yes, we are doing the snowman. It's an acrylic painting this coming Friday. That will be a 6 to 8 class, so good. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our eraser. Now I'm using a kneaded eraser in this particular case because I can shape it. If you just have like a regular eraser or even like your pencil eraser, you just want to use the edge because we're going to try to do like a very small, flat shape there. You can see. So we're going to come in and just kind of erase at the edges, and we're feathering it, so we're just giving it a very light appearance, and we're taking out even more color in the white areas around the edge. So I'm not really hitting the edge itself, I'm just kind of cleaning everything up, and that gives it more of an organic hair appearance. It is called feathering. We are doing feathers, so I'm not like a fan of this kind of rooster look that's going on here. I think it's just, hold on. See, now that I said that, now I have fade to black in my head. The only problem, I'm one of those people where like you say something and I can immediately attach song lyrics to it or movie quotes. The problem though is then I get it stuck in my head. So there's that. It's okay, there are worse songs to have stuck in your head than Fade to Black. Not bad, not bad. All right, so with if you're using a kneaded eraser, you do have to kind of reshape it every once in a while. And again, I am pulling into the darkness around it. That gives it a feathered, more natural appearance. Pulling into the darkness around it. That sounds like something from an Edgar Allan Poe book. Another one that he did that I really liked is Berenice. It's a good one. Telltale Heart. A lot of people know that one. That was a good one. If you've ever heard an audio recording of the Telltale Heart, it's pretty good because a lot of times they do some sound effects. You can hear the beating heart. It's intense. It's intense. And I'm just continually reshaping to get my point. While I'm doing this, I'm also I need to be kind of erasing the head that we drew at the very beginning, like that reference line. I'm coming in with my spreader because there was one line in here that just didn't look right to me. It just seemed like I maybe erased a little bit too much out, so. It's always a period in your drawing where you're constantly refining. Okay, now once I get down to a certain point, it just kind of comes straight down and we don't see anymore what's happening. So I'm just coming straight down. Okay. Let's see, where else do I need to go? Maybe too far. Well, we'll just put all of that back in there. I'm not happy about the situation on this nose. I want things to be going forward, like towards the front of the beak. So let's see if I can, wrong side. See if I can kind of force that here. Okay. And get our point back. We'll kind of draw our erased areas forward. Yeah, there we go. That is a little close to the eye though. So maybe I'm going to erase a little further up. It's much closer than I want to be to the eye. I think I got a little carried away in some of my places here. Some of my feathered areas here. So that's okay. That's okay. We can fix it. That's what we're doing now. So quiet today. Almost eerily quiet. I said it. I went there. We're Poe themed today. We can talk about it being eerie. In fact, I actually wore, let's see if, I don't know if you can see this, in honor of today. I've got these little, my earrings are skeletons that are hanging themselves, so that's fun. That would definitely be classified as macabre. Okay. I'm feeling relatively confident. I mean, the eye isn't exactly where I want it to be because, well, just because it's not. My proportions got off a little bit somewhere. So I'm just going to have to fudge it, basically. I'm just making believe that luckily this is why you don't press too hard, because then you can erase out. So hopefully those of you using number 2 pencils have better proportions than me, because it's going to be a little harder for you to erase out. All right. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I guess I've already spent quite a bit of time, but it's important to get these areas right first. Okay. We'll be okay with this. I'm going to be okay with this. So I do have this area on the bottom of the beak, which the bottom of the beak is going to be dark, so I don't need to really erase too much out, but I do have some little feathers down here that I want to make sure are getting their due, that I'm paying attention to them. Come in. See, how do I want to handle that? Okay. So I'm going to erase out kind of this whole area here, because I had to end up going into my drawing a little bit. We'll just fix that later when we're doing the dark parts. All right. Good. Good. Okay. All right. So now we're going to start adding our shadow on the inside of the raven's face. So let's see. I'm going to use my 6B again, because I can press the lightest and get the darkest color from that. All right, so we're coming in. We did some inside feathers, so I want to make sure not to get those. I want to make sure that I outline those. Okay. All right. So coming around my eye, this eye that I feel is a little off, and I'm being a little bit jagged with my lines because I want to indicate that there's feathers there. We're also going to go ahead and detail the eye. Now, inside the eye, there is, let's see, I think I want to make this come farther back. Okay, so I'm going to go around the inner part of the eye, just going around the outside of it with my dark color. I'm going to draw a little like patch of white, and then I'm going to color around that. Actually, that patch is not as big as I needed it to be, so luckily I did not go too dark. Where's my kneaded eraser here? I'm going to erase out a larger area of white. And then I'm going to come in with my spreader and spread around it. Okay. Excuse me. Boy, that added some creep factor to it. That's good. Okay. All right, so back to what we were doing. There's like this ring around the eye. It comes off in that teardrop shape I was talking about earlier. The eye itself is like connected almost to the back of the teardrop. You see this in Egyptian art a lot because they had like the hawk. Who is that? Horus, maybe? The falcon or something. There's that outline around the eye and then it connects in the back. Okay. All right, now we're going to come in and we're going to, now that we have our eye defined, we can come in and do our shadows a little bit more. You know, something that I'm doing, you know, I teach art, but I also teach a lot of other things, or I have the ability to teach other things, even if I've never taught them before. And I would be open to suggestions of things to teach even, you know, because I want, if you want to learn something, I want to be able to make that happen. So, you know, all of that can be shared in the Discord channel, which is listed there on the screen, the art share. Okay, so we've got that shadow there. There's like this kind of feathering around the eye, which I want to come just a little farther out than it does. There we go. I'm going to start coming in here and I'm going to do try to kind of mimic the white areas, like the white feathers on the outside, with my dark. Sort of like what we did around the outside. You know, we just mimicked the edge of it. It gives it more drama. It's something that the viewer may or may not even notice, but it's like an underlying factor that makes it seem like good art, makes it seem effective. There's a conversation that I had earlier about what good art is. To me, everybody has their own definitions, so this may or may not be the right definition, but it's mine. Good art is when it effectively communicates a concept or a message. Let's see here. In this particular drawing, we're communicating a concept. And this is a concept called representational art. Now, some people feel that art has a message in it even when it is representational. Representational means it looks exactly like what it is. An English countryside is an English countryside. A raven is a raven. However, the artist, their culture, and their ideas and opinions are always going to be present in their artwork. So that's being communicated too, whether they intended it to be communicated or not. So even in representational, like this, we're not trying to tell the viewer anything specific. It's just a cool picture of a raven, but this is still gonna, let's see. I'm gonna do some kind of zigzaggy lines down here. Yeah, okay. So get some water. It's still going to represent, it's still going to show something of ourselves in it. The artist can never fully escape putting a part of themselves into their artwork. Okay, now is the time. We're going to come down here to these feathers down below and we're going to start defining them more. So now is when I need to get serious about the shapes that I want them to be in. So I'm just coming down and just coloring around the edges. This is going to define them. Again, we're still doing tonal shading. So tonal shading is this whole idea that we brought the tone to the edge and created an edge rather than it being a line. And that's what we're doing here, that even though there are lines here, because we're bringing the tone to the edge of the line, it makes it look more like an edge, more realistic. That contrast of values. Well, just adding this shading here is really kind of making it stand out in a way where it doesn't look quite as methodical as it did before. Just everything kind of looked the same. So this class is going a little bit longer than my normal classes. Maybe some because of the Poe trivia. And maybe some because we're taking our time. some of these aren't going to have as much shading as others. They might be a thinner line. Now towards the edge here, I'm going to have some feathers coming out, some darker feathers. I'm like having trouble finishing sentences today, guys. I'm so focused on our raven. Nothing wrong with being focused on your artwork, though. Art can be very therapeutic for that reason, because you can really get lost in it. That's why I like fiber arts, like weaving, for example, because it's just very therapeutic. Okay, I'm definitely now that we're adding this shading in, it's coming along a lot better, and I'm liking the way it's looking. See, that's why you can't always judge what something's going to look like at the beginning, because when you start out, things don't always look as good, because, you know, it's just the beginning stages. That's the whole point. It's the beginning. I am going ahead and adding some in here, like as I see, like, oh, there's a place that looks like it could have like a little feather, and I'm doing that. So it's not completely devoid of any changes, but you know. All right. Now I'm taking a class where we do a lot of project-oriented stuff. And one of the questions that I have to answer is, I have to be the lead on something. So I can be like the lead project manager, I can be the lead developer, I can be the lead graphic designer, I can be the lead analyst. I feel like there was another lead in there somewhere. So we had to fill out this survey that asked us what we wanted to be the lead of. And I immediately put graphic designer, because this is very relaxing to me. You know, it doesn't matter what I'm designing for. And I've designed for a lot of different industries over the years. Construction. I used to design for a wastewater treatment plant. You know, that they would they'd build new plants, so I designed their portfolios. Well, shoot, I designed their letterhead and their logo and everything, but some of that I can't share. I can just tell you generally about it, because there's NDAs. That's always fun. But I've worked for an architect. I've designed all different kinds of portfolios over the years. Like presentations, when people are presenting a product. I'm particularly good at that kind of design. That's marketing, promotions. Design greeting cards. That's actually pretty fun. The whole point is that I like to design. I like graphic design. Now this is drawing, so it's not really design, and I didn't even design this picture, somebody else did. I'm sure they used a reference photo of an actual raven, but it's similar in the feel, as far as working on in this particular medium, drawing. I also enjoy painting, but there's something about drawing that's just very relaxing. The other one I chose was to be the lead developer, because I could really use some, I've been lead developer before, but I could really use some more experience in that. So I wouldn't mind doing that job either if somebody else was just dying to be the graphic artist. I've got enough experience as a graphic artist. That's the whole thing about school, is you want to try new things, or things that you could use more experience in. Developing ideas, especially for education, can actually be pretty challenging and interesting. Okay. So I'm feeling pretty good about this area here. So we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to go even darker. Now I'm going to come in and outline. This is something I don't know. Hang on. We need to define our beak a little bit more. So the beak does come out and down. So I'm going to come in with my spreader and just define that beak shape at the end there. All right. So I'm also going to define the separation of the two beaks. Okay. That gives me a basis of where my shadow is going to be. So I'm going to put my shadow. It doesn't cover the entire lower part of the beak, but quite a bit of it. Will tell you that designing an image to me is much easier than designing instruction. And I love designing instruction too. That's where I figure out like how I'm going to teach these classes to you guys. Like how can I most effectively get the information across so that you learn it and at the same time retain that knowledge and learn critical thinking. And it is extremely challenging because every learner is different, I think I see what the issue was earlier. I think what happened is I carried the beak a little bit too far back. So all right, here's what I'm going to do. At this point, everything's pretty dark, so I don't want to take too much out. Let's do that. How about that? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. We will be taking our blender and blending some of this in. I'm just trying to lay down our shadow lines, so I know the boundaries of where our shadows are going to fall. Okay. So we have this area here that's white underneath and around the beak. So I want to make sure that I have that area. Okay. So now we can come in darker. Remember that hatching that we did earlier? Well, I'm going to come in with I'm doing little jagged lines. I'm coming in with my pencil around the edge of that, just to give it a tiny bit more definition. Not too much, but a little bit darker, especially here in the back. And this gives some shadows underneath those feathers, showing that it's sitting up from the beak a little bit. I'm going to come over that cross hatching just a tiny bit with the bridge there. This is all dark here. I want to leave a little bit of white space above the eye. This is more for dramatic effect than anything else. I don't think that that's like an actual part of a raven's eye. But like I said, we're going for that strong contrast, the chiaroscuro. Again, anybody who has questions, feel free to ask in chat. Twitch chat, not Discord, because you can ask questions in Discord, but I won't see it till the end. And if you want to join Discord so that you can upload your photos for personalized feedback from yours truly, or anybody else in chat for that matter, in the Discord channel. My Discord is right there on the screen. Okay. I'm just trying to be very careful. Remember, number 2 rule, don't rush. I'm trying to be very careful because I want to make sure that I am not going into any of the places that I painstakingly erased out of earlier, or left white. And I think I did it anyway, but that's okay. We're just gonna make it work. Ta-da! Just made it the shape I wanted it to be. Now in here I've got a lot more lines of the feathers. And I'm going to come around the outside. There's this like boundary line of dark feathers that comes pretty close to the white area. And I want you guys to know too that, you know, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, because I do upload these to YouTube, and maybe eventually we'll stream live on YouTube as well, simultaneously. But I am very open to answering questions anytime, not just during my streams, which is why I have the Discord channel. You know, I want you guys to be able to get feedback at any time, because as an artist, you know, we're not always on schedule. You may be working on something on a Saturday night, and I actually keep pretty late hours. I'm Eastern time, which I think is -5 Greenwich Mean Time for any of those of you living outside of the United States. But I'm up pretty late. I get up early, I go to bed late, and I just take naps during the day. And I'm glad I have a lifestyle right now that I can do that, because that is my preferred schedule. Okay. So something's going on here that I'm noticing. I'm going to have to get my eraser out. Something's going on here. The shape, the back of my bird's head is not what I want it to be. I think I want my the white part of the head where it starts going down into the back. I think I want that to start a little bit farther to the side. Basically giving my bird a fatter head. In fact, I might use a different eraser than my... Remember, always blow, don't wipe. Especially when we get to these stages. It's probably okay. The way I've got it right there is probably okay. Just my proportions just got off a little bit earlier. Okay, so now I feel a little more confident, like I can come down. Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so now I can get like these dark strokes in here. And then down here, which is like right above the chest feathers, or back feathers, I guess they are, not chest. We've got like all of this very dark I'm still not sure how I feel about all the proportions there, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm I'm just going to live with it. I don't think it looks bad. I think it still looks very Raven-esque. It just doesn't necessarily look like the reference photo. But you know, that happens sometimes. It's like your drawing could end up looking very different from my drawing, but still look like a raven. I mean, no two ravens are going to look exactly the same, I would imagine. So, you know, it's okay if yours looks different than mine, or it looks different than the reference drawing. It looks like mine is going to look different than the reference drawing. And that's okay. It just makes it a little bit more individual. Now, I will tell you, out of all the classes that I teach, the painting is the most enjoyable one for me, even though drawing itself is more enjoyable when I'm on my own. I'm not entirely sure why that is. There's something about acrylic painting that is very easy to customize for a classroom. I've done watercolor, even doesn't come close to it. Watercolor's okay, but it is not the same. Something about acrylic painting. So I highly encourage everyone to come to my acrylic painting classes, which are all of my painting classes are generally going to be on Fridays. All of my drawing classes are generally going to be on Tuesdays. And I'm just keeping it that way just for consistency, so that you know when drawing classes are going to get posted and when painting classes are going to get posted. Again, you can go to my website, Goski Design, and I've got a calendar list there. Calendar of events. So this Friday I'm doing an acrylic painting, and I try to trade off where I do acrylic one week and watercolor the next week. And that gives everybody options. But for acrylic painting, if you are interested in that and you do not have acrylic paints, I usually buy either Grumbacher paints or Liquitex paints. My preference is Liquitex, but it's not because of the paint quality. Grumbacher, I think, is actually better paint quality in my opinion. Golden is really good paint quality, although I will tell you Golden is different. Golden has a different saturation. I would say it's like I don't know how to describe it. It seems like a thicker color when you put it down, but it's not thicker in consistency. It's just more saturated color. Golden is very high quality, but I'm used to the Liquitex quality, so I use those. I try not to mix them too much. I think you get a rounder color with Golden. But here's the thing. No matter what brand paint you use, you're going to find one that you like better than others. Even if you don't, you need to go to Walmart or something and buy cheap paints. It's not a problem. Just make sure you buy acrylic, not tempera or anything like that. It needs to be acrylic. And I would recommend you get a red, a blue, a brown, a white, and a yellow. Those are the colors you need. Now, if you go back to my first stream, which was like the introduction, that had a list of the colors that I use. So there you, and that's also on YouTube. Either one, if you go to lesson number 1, it shows the colors that I use in the description. So that way you can join in. I use generally 2 brushes, a large wash brush, either 3/4 inch wash brush or like it's also called a filbert, which I love that name. Now my pencil is starting to get thin, so I have, this is a little makeup, I don't even know where I got it, but it's a little, probably a drugstore or a beauty supply store, but just like a little makeup pencil sharpener, so I'm going to sharpen that. Get a sharper point. It was just starting to get dull. So either size 10 or 12 filbert, that's what I was talking about, was paintbrushes for acrylic. Also, I use those same size brushes for my watercolor classes. Now, watercolor, I do use Grumbacher paints, but you can use the type of watercolor paints that come in like those little palettes where they're the little wells where they're like circles or square wells of paint. You can use those too. It's a little harder to mix than tubes of paint. I prefer the tubes. Okay. All right, so we're pretty good. I'm going to come in here under the eye and go just a little darker. Just always layering, always layering. All right. Just coming in around the eye. Getting those feathers. They're coming directly from the eye. Kind of dark coal. And like rounding it a little bit more. Okay. This class is definitely going over because we are not done yet. We are already past 4. So luckily we got our stretches in. I'm going to make it a little bit darker back here. So thank you guys for sticking with me during this little bit longer class. If you missed any of my fun Poe trivia earlier, I mean, I'm pretty done with that now, but you have to go back and watch, learn, or you could just look it up. Edgar Allan Poe. His birthday was Sunday, and he is one of my favorite authors. I have several of them, but he's definitely up there. All right. Just coming in all these little places and just darkening it up. I got my first layer down, which kind of helped me define where I wanted the darkest bits to be. And now I'm coming in and darkening it even more. I suppose I'll probably come in with my spreader here and really darken this. Let's do that. Let's get Mr. Spreader in here. So all this does is fill in any kind of white area that got missed by the pencil. This comes in. Now I want to create a little bit of shadow above here that's slightly lighter. So I'm going to use my spreader, my dirty spreader basically, as a way to define these lines. And And I keep looking back at my reference photo. If you go to the Discord channel, I put the reference photo out there for everyone. It's really important to keep your reference, whatever it is you're looking at, whether you're drawing something live or you're looking at a photo like we are, to keep your reference handy. Because you never know. You want to look at it, make sure you're still on target, even though we work in steps where your reference photo isn't necessarily needed right away in all cases. Okay, I'm going to bring my dirty spreader down into the beak just a little bit and just add a little bit more shadow here, but just much lighter. Keep thinking of chickens every time I see this eye because it's got that crest. I think too with painting I talk more. I mean, there's more to talk about, I guess, because painting is a constant. It dries. So there's not whole lapses of time like with drawing where you're going in and you're just kind of coloring for a little while. You don't have that as much in painting. So I think that's the other reason why I like it, just as for teaching purposes. Like I said, if I'm just working on my own, drawing is probably my preference. Though I do like oil painting. But oil painting is like that too because it takes so long to dry. You do work in like these little tiny areas at a time, and but you can come back over it. I don't know. And of course, my absolute favorite art form, which is not having to do with any of this, is weaving. I love weaving, but I think I like tedious processes. That's just my personality. I like processes that let you kind of zone out while you're doing them and just get in a flow. I would say it's mindful, but sometimes I'm not. I don't think even 100% mindful about it. I just go. I just let myself get in a flow. It's probably more Tao than it is mindful. Okay, getting to a larger area. The larger areas are always nice because well, just because. I mean, there's something to be said for the tedious little lines that you have to draw and like work in little spots, but then there's also something to be said for the large areas where you get to just kind of color. You just move your brush or your spreader around and or your pencil and don't have to think too much about it. My tummy's growling and saying, "Give me another piece of chocolate." I'm going to give you two. How about that? I'm not even specifically a chocolate person. I just like sweet. I have a sweet tooth. I actually probably like fruity kind of stuff more. But chocolate's good too. I will eat it all. Okay. Yay! I am like really excited about how this is turning out so far. Okay, so I'm going to come in with my spreader and do a couple like little, just drawing my spreader lightly, very, very lightly through that white patch on the cheek, because I want to give some impression of very fine feathers. Okay, now we gotta do something about this area down here. Okay, so we're gonna use something. We're gonna use lead. So up until now, we have not. I haven't really worked with you on lead, and so if you are using, it's much darker. It's kind of the medium between graphite and charcoal. So if you are only using a number 2 pencil today, you'll just need to press relatively hard. I would not, obviously don't like jam your pencil into the paper or anything like that where you're making marks into the next pages, but you just, in order to get this dark, you're going to have to go a little bit harder. So I am using the number 3 lead, which is actually the lighter of the lead. Number 1 is actually the darkest. So what I'm going to do, I'm coming in and I'm not only going around the outside, but I'm doing little tiny lines inside. I'm going to show you. I'm going to hold this up. Let's see. So right here, see, I did these tiny little lines. And this is going to give them a feathery appearance, okay? I'm just going very lightly. You don't have to press hard in this area. Well, at least not with the lead. You might have to press a little bit harder with the number 2 pencil. Excuse me. You guys, I'm really excited. So something I've always kind of been a fan of is computer programming. I learned how to program in a very old language called BASIC when I was 12. And I used to make really rudimentary games. But I didn't stick with it. Who knows what would have happened if I had. Especially when I was in school, because it was still, computer science was still a pretty new thing to, as far as a discipline. People did it, but it wasn't like there were a lot of programs in school for that. You kind of learned from other people who did it. So, all right. What do I want to do here? I think I'm going to very lightly come down and just kind of color or shade, I guess, down into my bird just a little bit. That will, I'll blend with my finger here in a little bit. And anyway, so I didn't stick with it. I learned that I've used programming over the years for various things, like little tasks. Sometimes it's just fixing code, like somebody will send me something and the code will break, or I don't even know exactly what's happening when it happens, but it's not working the way it's intended to work. So I knew enough where I could go in and read it and try to figure out how to fix the issue. But anyway, the point is, the reason I'm excited is I've really been wanting to fully, I don't want to say fully, but I've been wanting to learn code like I did with BASIC, like learn it from scratch, learn all the syntax and everything and how to use it. And so I'm getting ready to. I'm excited. I'm taking this course that's designed for the C programming language. And I'm going to learn the fundamentals. Pretty excited right now. Also, currently, I tend to hang around a lot of programmers, and so it'd be nice to know what the heck they're talking about sometimes. So I guess that'll be good too. I'll understand some of the industry jargon finally. I mean, I can usually follow their conversations, but when they start talking technical details, I get lost. I know high level stuff, but anyway, so that's my exciting news for the week. I got spammed by on Twitter by a bot for a band that I like a lot called Baby Metal. They are a Japanese metal band, and they're very kawaii. Super adorbs. I would recommend you check them out, especially if you like metal, because it's very different, but interesting. So I was excited when I first saw it. I thought, oh my goodness, they friended me. And then, no, it was a bot. It's okay. I knew it was too good to be true. That a cool band would friend me. Little old me. Or not friend me, I guess follow me. Friend's not the right word on Twitter. Do people on Twitter even have friends? On Twitter? I don't think so. I don't know. I just started using Twitter recently. I don't know how many. I think I only have like 50 tweets. And that's including like retweets. I'm not, I don't know. Social media is something I've avoided for a little while, and I'm just now starting to use it, so. What I'm doing is I'm coming in here in some of these like corners where the different feathers meet each other and just making it dark. And this just, again, adds more drama. We're always adding drama with this one, with this particular drawing. Drama is important. A, because we're going for contrast, that chiaroscuro I talked about earlier. And B, because it's a raven. It's supposed to be dramatic. That's, it's the Poe story. A little creepy, a little dramatic. Nothing wrong with that. Here and there, every once in a while, I'll see a place where I'll add like an extra feather that wasn't there before. And that's just to kind of give it that look of, happenstance and not planned feathers, And I'm also I'm creating some new feathered areas that are trailing off. They don't quite connect. It gives the impression that the bird is disappearing. Okay, excuse me, I got the hiccups. There's another trailing off area. Okay, and I think when I was doing my little shading earlier, forgot this area up here, so we're just gonna do that. Just coming in with some shade. I'm throwing shade at this raven. No, I'm not, Raven. I don't hate you. You're wonderful. Don't throw shade at anybody. It's unnecessary. You live your life the way you want to live it, and let other people be on their own path. It's what my dad used to call none ya business. You just do you. Okay. It's like probably one of my biggest pet peeves, and of course
a lot of people do it, but you know, when people are very nosy or up in somebody else's business telling them how to be, it's like, you know, nobody's perfect. Everybody's got work to do. Nobody's their best self already. We're all on a journey to somewhere. So, you know. Unnecessary to hate on other people. You need to watch sometimes at the side of your hand because, you know, it's resting on here. Watch that it's you know, it can get some of the white areas dirty. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay. Now, what else do we have to do? So I guess we can use this lead, excuse me, and we can continue to come around like the edges of things and make it even darker for even more drama. I'm going to do that slightly here, but I'm not going to go into too much of it because, you know, I want this stream has already gone over, so, and I want to get to our critique. But, you know, I may go in later and add more. Need more cowbell. Cultural reference from my generation. So right down here where the neck area is a little darker. So I'm just letting myself press down just a little bit more. Okay, and let's see, where else is darker? Back here. Kind of where we did our head earlier, where we mimicked the shape of the head. Those are like the darker areas. All right. Let's see. Is there anywhere else I need to go? I think I came in here already. So I'm just, you know. I might come in, I might do some lines. So, okay, let's do this. Let's take our eraser. I'm making a nice point on it. I'm using the kneaded eraser, or you can use the corner. And I'm going to do some kind of just streaks with the eraser. Okay, now what I'm going to do is do some streaks with the pencil. And this gives that appearance of feathers. I'm going to come down here and do some. You can go back and forth with this a few times, and that will just take out any blending that happened that you didn't necessarily want to happen, where you wanted to keep the feathers looking feathery and not blend it together. I am happy with it the way it is, so I'm not going to do any more on that. I am going to do just a little bit more down here. I'm going to come back in those lines that I did, like over here, kind of up close to the bird's head. We do want to leave some light areas because there's like a reflective light there. But over here I'm going to actually come in and darken it a little bit. And basically do some more lines. Just darken everything. More lines.
Now I am going to come in with my blender here in just a minute, and we're going to blend our hearts out. And then we should be done. We should be done, guys. We are really close. Just coming in around all these feathers because this is what lends that drama. Gotta have the drama. Not in real life, but in our artwork. In real life, you don't want the drama. For some of us, drama is kind of a part of our job. You know, I'm a teacher, and I need to be a little dramatic because that's how I keep people engaged. I get excited about things, and that gets other people excited about things. But like in your personal life, oh man, just let it go. Nothing is worth creating drama over, trust me, ever. As someone who was quite dramatic in my youth, I've learned just to let it go. Just like Elsa says, let it go. Being dramatic does make you a good storyteller, though. I will say that. And when you're a good storyteller, that makes you a good presenter. Usually. Because it's interesting and engaging. You know? Okay. All right. Dun 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 dun! Time for the spreader. All right. I'm not going to spread anywhere on the inside of the bird. We already spread. I think it's pretty good. I'm not also going to do anything on the outside, I don't think. Where I'm going to mostly spread is down in the feather area, and I'm just very barely touching it. I mean, really barely touching it. You don't have to do much. A spreader will like instantly start working when it gets close to the paper. In fact, I'm convinced it's like so excited to do its job that you don't even have to touch the paper. But you do. It seems like you don't, though. I mean, you can get pretty close. So the farther I get out, I'm trying to keep my light areas. I don't want everything to be dark here. I want there to be a little bit of a gradient effect. And we're almost there, guys. Almost there. Okay, well, now I'm going to very gently spread this area down here. Actually, you know what? Finger. Let's do it with the finger. Spread this area down here. There we go. Nice. Okay. This is a little darker than I want it to be, so I'm going to bring my eraser in here. Good. Good, good, good. Good, good. It's happening. It's happening. I'm very excited about this image. So I am going to use my finger a little bit more on the outside, just generally blending everything. Okay. You know what? I do see one spot. I'm going to get the number 3. Oh boy, now my eyesight's failing me. Number 3 lead pencil, and I'm going to come in right around the outside of the eye. I want it to be just a little darker. There. There we go. Okay, okay. Hey there, bird. And I'm gonna go away, little fly. Okay. Yep. Now I'm gonna very lightly take my spreader and just even that out just a little bit. Okay. So you could continue coming in here and you could make it even darker in here. I'm not going to, mostly for the sake of time in the class, because we're coming up on the end of 3 hours. I said I wasn't going to do very much in here, but just around this eye. Yeah. Okay. Also, I am going to come right up on the underside, and at least in part, I'm going to come up. Okay, let's see. Well, let's see. Catch some of these lines in here that I missed. Apparently I did not get all of them. And some of them I want them to be a little lighter than they are. So we're going to just take our eraser and just dab. I'm just dabbing, not dabbing. I don't even know where that trend started. Actually, I do know where that trend started. I don't want to lie about that. Okay. With trap, guys, with trap. Okay. So, dabbing has been taken over by children. Okay, this is what I needed to do. I didn't realize it, but now I'm realizing it. So all of those lines that I went around and drew, I need to come in with my spreader and even them out. I think that's what's been bothering me about this area down here, is that the lines, there's still a lot of bumpiness, I guess, in them. I need to smooth them out. Yeah. Yep. That was it. See, so this is the thing. When you're drawing, you don't always see what it is you need to do right away. That's why sometimes you just got to go for it and don't plan too much. I mean, you want a little bit of planning, like we did at the beginning, where you color in. You draw your outline shapes. But, you know, it's important to just get in there and start working. That's how you know. That's how you see what needs to happen. You know. So, and then you can kind of let your drawing or your painting or whatever it is you're working on, and you just let it evolve and let it tell you what it wants, you know, what it needs. Okay, so I'm gonna just take my eraser because my hand has been hitting the underside of things. This whole bottom part of the bird, my hand's been hitting it. So I just want to come down with the eraser and just make sure. Okay, so does anybody remember what you do? Always sign your work. Always. Okay, so let's talk about, you can go over to the Discord channel. I'm going to go open that up, and we're going to, if anybody wants to post their work, you can take a photo and upload it to the Discord channel. I am going to talk about my work here. So I like to critique work. I think this is an important component to critical thinking. It helps you work out problems in the work. So it's something that you kind of should be doing as you go, which we did. You know, I saw things that needed to happen as we went, but a lot of times you can't see until you're done. Oh, this needs to be happening, because you don't get that overall image. So And I've got little pencil eraser bits all over my desk there. Okay, I'll get that later. So looking at the reference drawing and then looking at my drawing, I want to see what's working and what is not working. Like, what is not effective in this? And that's how you grow as an artist. So you need to give yourself commendation when you're doing something well and it needs to continue happening, because that's how you continue being effective in those areas. But of course, you also need feedback, and to give yourself or to get feedback from other people on what could be developed more, or what you need to stop doing altogether. And that's really important. It's really important to get feedback in order for you to grow. So if somebody gives you advice and about something that you do, maybe it's not art related, maybe you leave your dirty socks out on the floor and your roommate says, hey, you leave your dirty socks out on the floor, pick them up, that's feedback. So learn from that. Don't just say, oh, my roommate's always complaining because of my socks, like it's not that big of a deal. No, just learn from it. Just learn that not everybody wants to be tripping over your socks. So that's my life lesson for the day that comes from art. So we're going to just do this with art though. So looking at this and looking at the reference drawing, I actually got pretty close. I'm going to say I'm rather proud of the turnout here. What I think is most effective is my feathers. I love the feathers, especially on the inside of the face here. And I think that's very effective. I think that the lines that I went in and added later, which even I don't think they even really had in the reference drawing, but I think it's very effective in mine. I probably could do a little bit more work down here, maybe even add some more pieces, some more feathers coming down this way. But overall, I think it's okay. It gives the impression of, the shoulder of a bird, the feathers on the shoulder of a bird. Okay. One thing that I see right away that I think needs to be fixed, and I can use my spreader for this, is the eye, I think, does not come down far enough. If you look at the reference drawing, the eye is more rounded at the bottom and less oval. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to very carefully, because I do not want to destroy the shape of the eye, I'm going to come down and I'm just going to get a little closer to the bottom, just a little. Yeah, I'm not going to try to erase out. I mean, really the white of the eye, like the shine in the eye, the light reflection probably could come down too, but this is pretty dark, so erasing out I think would just look bad, and it would end up just making it messy looking. So we're not going to do that. There we go. Yep. There we go. Honestly, I probably could do a little bit more work on the feathers on the outside as far as coming in with the spreader. I'm not going to do it right now, but coming in with the spreader and making these lines more defined. Other than that, though, I think overall that the picture is pretty effective. I think it looks very similar to the reference drawing, and it looks like a raven. And when you're doing representational art, that's kind of the main key, is that it looks like what you wanted it to look like, that you're expressing an idea or a concept, and that concept is a representation of object X, In this case, the object is a raven, so that's what we wanted to get across. And boy, if somebody looks at that picture, they're going to think, oh, that looks like a raven. Mission accomplished. So that's all I have. It looks like there is not anybody in that has uploaded pictures today in the Discord channel. But again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you are welcome to, or if you're watching the VOD on Twitch, you're welcome to join the Discord channel
post your pictures at any point. Like I said, I currently do get notifications anytime anyone posts, and I will try to respond to you as soon as I can, as long as I'm not in the middle of something. So please feel free. I am excited to see what other people do, and how, if you get a raven that's like this, or maybe yours looks a little different, or maybe you decided to go a different direction altogether and reverse your or I guess inverse your colors, so that you did light and dark in different areas. Whatever you did, I'd like to see it. Anyway, that's it for today. We did 3 hours, guys. It's a very long stream, but I think it was worth it. I think this is a really dramatic drawing that I will cherish looking at it later, because it's different than a lot of the other drawings I've done. So I guess I can say sayonara, and I hope to see you guys on Friday, that we are going to be drawing a really adorable snowman. Painting. Did I say drawing? Painting. We're going to be painting with acrylic paints a really cute snowman that is also a very dramatic scene. So have a good day.